Clearing prelims is not just about working hard. Of course, you have to work harder. You have to study long, you have to put in a lot of effort. But clearing prelims also involves a lot of hard work, a lot of smart work. Most of you tend to really underestimate the PYQs. You'll study Lakshmikant. After studying polity, you'll do all the PYQs related to Lakshmikant. You'll study spectrum and then you will focus on doing all the PYQs related to spectrum. No, there is much more to the PYQs. UPSC always try to throw some surprises, right? Or I would say UPSC always try to keep its unpredictability. In the 2025 prelims, you can see 2 questions related to some kind of calculation. Some of you must have thought that, it might be the CSAT paper. No, it was the GS paper and you had a bit of calculation in that. Now, I usually call UPSC as a multi-wordness practice because we have these endless academies out there who actually provides you the prelims test series without focusing on the PYQs, without having any knowledge regarding the micro themes, without having significant knowledge regarding the elimination techniques, be it the patterns and all this. They just provide you random factual questions which doesn't train you for the 2026 prelims which is coming next year. What do you think you should do when only one fact is given and you don't have any logical and elimination techniques to counter the statement or even make it correct? This is where the pattern comes into play. Let me tell you something very straight. Okay, as you have seen the 2025 paper as well, the prelims, even compared to 2024, it's getting harder every year. Now, if you actually think that in 2024, I studied like 8 hours every day. Now, this year for 2026 prelims, I'm going to be studying around 12 hours every day. Do you really think that you can make it? Do you really think that if you don't radically change your approach, if you don't radically change the way you did, if you don't make the same mistakes, or if you're repeating the same mistakes, do you really think that you can make it through for the 2026 prelims? Because let me tell you something, clearing prelims is not just about working hard. Of course, you have to work harder. You have to study long, you have to put in a lot of effort. But clearing prelims also involves a lot of hard work, a lot of smart work. Now, what do you do, or what do I mean when I say smart work? It's basically about analyzing the PYQs. When you analyze the PYQs, you will know that you need to focus on the micro themes. There are a lot of things that there lies in the PYQ. There are a lot of things that meets the eye in PYQs. As a beginner, most of you, or even some of you were beginners, right? Some of you may be giving their first attempt. Some of you might be giving your second attempt. Most of you tend to really underestimate the PYQs. You'll study Lakshmikant. After studying polity, you'll do all the PYQs related to Lakshmikant. You'll study spectrum and then you will focus on doing all the PYQs related to spectrum. No, there is much more to the PYQs. And if you surgically analyze the PYQs, you'll understand that most of the questions, maybe around 40 questions, you can get to the static portions. If you work harder, you will get that static 40 questions. But the rest, 50 to 60 questions, you will only get through if you learn the logical and elimination techniques, the patterns, and much more that lies inside the PYQ. And let me tell you, in this session, we are going to surgically analyze the last 10 years of PYQs and understand and learn all the patterns that are there in the different types of UPSC questions. So, take your pen, take your notes. This is going to be one hell of a session, and you must have, even if you search in YouTube, you won't see what I'm going to say right now. So firstly, we are basically going to talk about the different types of UPSC questions and the patterns that are there, that exist, and the UPSC keeps on repeating these patterns for the last 5 to 10 years. So, after the session, it's going to be a guarantee from my side, okay? You will have a lot of confusion right now, but then after the session, you will have much more clarity on how to read the PYQs and how to analyze and understand the patterns that are there in all the PYQs as well. So these are the different types of questions. As you all know, there are mainly 13 types of questions in PYQs. As you can see here, you have the single statement questions. You have, you have the two statement questions. You have the 3 statement questions. You have the 4 statement questions, 5 statement questions. You also have 6 statement, 7 statement questions. And as UPSC have introduced in 2024, you have the 3 row-based questions. You have the 4 rows-based questions. UPSC always try to innovate, right? In 2023, we saw a significant shift in the statement and assertion questions. And right now, in 2024, we saw a lot of row-based questions as well. Now here, a significant pattern shift from 2022, UPSC have introduced only base questions, and among them we have the 3-pair and also the 4-pair questions. You have the statement and assertion questions coming into light after 2022. Even 2021 there was a single question regarding Hyderabad, but when it came to 2022, around 18 questions were there in statement assertion in 2023 as well. And also, UPSC always try to throw some surprises, right? Or I would say UPSC always try to keep its unpredictability. In the 2025 prelims, you can see 2 questions related to some kind of calculation. Some of you must have thought that, it might be the CSAT paper. No, it was the GS paper, and you had a bit of calculation in that. And also, to our surprise, UPSC actually asked about the Coco World Cup. I don't know for what reason. And also, like the state PSC board examinations, UPSC asked about international year of something and the year related to that. So UPSC always try to throw some surprises, but let me tell you, apart from the surprises, UPSC always, okay, I am not saying that UPSC is highly unpredictable. I have been there on the opposite side, and I have cleared 4 prelims consecutively, so I know the patterns that UPSC is following, and mostly UPSC stick to these patterns. It's because that you are not familiar with these patterns, you feel that, okay, fine, this is something that I am not going to get into. This is something very hard for me. Of course, UPSC prelims is hard, but then if you know the patterns, the job is much easier for you. So, how do I solve each of these questions? As I shown you, there are 13 type of questions, right? Let me tell you, there are each and every pattern to solve these type of questions. Let's say single type of questions, single statement type of questions. There is a list of logic, there is a list of methodology, there is a list of guidelines to solve it. Let's say 2 statement questions. As I'm going to say in firstly, there are a list of guidelines that you need to follow when you actually go on solving the 2 statement questions as well. So let me tell you, how do you solve it? It's a very simple question, right? You need to know the information factually. You might be thinking that, no, that's not the thing that I am looking here. So firstly, you have to understand what UPSC asked in the questions. It might be, UPSC might be asking a correct statement, UPSC might be asking about an incorrect statement, or UPSC might introduce some kind of extreme words in the headings. Okay? UPSC might introduce some kind of extreme words in the headings. Now, this is the most important thing that you need to look into when you read a question. Is there any extreme word in the headings? I'll share an example regarding the same. So, if you can see here, now the first question considers the following statements. The effect of devaluation of a currency is that it necessarily improves the competitiveness, increases the foreign currency value, and improves the trade balance. Now, ask yourself, why did UPSC introduce the word necessarily here? Why did UPSC introduce the word necessarily here? Let's say, improves the competitiveness of the domestic exports in the foreign market. When a devaluation of a currency takes place, always it improves the competitiveness. Okay, when you devalue the currency from 80 to 90, it always improves the export competitiveness, right? So therefore, this is true. But then, does it necessarily lead to increase in the foreign value of the domestic currency? No, it doesn't definitely lead to. But then, what about the third statement? Improves the trade balance. Does devaluation of a currency always leads to trade balance? Let's say India is an importing country. Let's say we devalue the country. And then at that time, we are importing more commodities, right? So even by devaluing, does our trade balance improve? No. But then, what if the question here was can and not necessarily? The effect of devaluation of a currency is that it can. Then, can devaluation of a currency improve the trade balance? It can improve, right? So here, the answer actually changes because of the word necessarily is given. If it was given that can, then option 3 is correct here. But then since the word necessarily is given, third statement is incorrect here. Now this is the difference that a heading or an extreme word given in the heading actually makes. Now, first of all, you have to look into whether the question has an extreme word given in the heading. Now, after which, as you can see here as well in the second question, in a pressure cooker, the temperature at which the cook is cooked depends mainly upon which of the following: area of the hole of the lid, temperature of the flame, weight of the lid. Now here, according to UPSC answer key, the answer was C, 1 and 3. Now, how did such an answer come into? Let me say the word mainly was not written here. Can UPSC actually say that not even 0.001 percentage the temperature of the flame doesn't affect the food? Can UPSC say that? Can UPSC say that? Can UPSC say the temperature of the flame doesn't even at least 1% or even 0.001 percentage affect the cook that is cooked? No, UPSC cannot say that. Now, to eliminate our 1% logic, what did UPSC introduce here? UPSC have introduced the word mainly here. Now, UPSC can actually confirm that the temperature of the food doesn't mainly influence the food that is cooked upon, right? So UPSC basically introduced the word mainly here to eliminate one of the option here. Now, what did UPSC introduce the word effectively here? With the present state of development, artificial intelligence can effectively do which of the following? Now, this is a question related to 2018, okay? So you don't have ChatGPT, DeepSeek or any other things right now. I mean, at that time. So why did UPSC introduce the word effectively here? It's basically to eliminate option 2 and 3. Now, if the word effectively was not there, then all the above would have been the answer. Now, that is why UPSC introduced some kind of extreme words. So why do UPSC introduce? If there is an extreme word given in the heading, UPSC might be using these extreme words in order to eliminate at least one of the options. Clear, everyone? I'll show you some of the examples. Now here, consider the following freedom fighters: Barindra Kumar Ghosh, Jogesh Chandra Chatterjee, Raj Bihari Bose. Now here, who of the above were actively associated with Ghadar party? Now here, the answer was only 3. Only Raj Bihari Bose was actively part of Ghadar party. Now, if the word actively was not there, can UPSC say that Barindra Kumar Ghosh or even Jogesh Chandra Chatterjee was not associated to Ghadar party in any manner? Can UPSC say that? They must have at least gone for one meeting. They must have been associated somehow. They must have even, wrote an article regarding the same, or some kind of association would have been there, right? Now, in order to eliminate that in future, some of the students may actually contest that question. What did UPSC introduce here? UPSC introduced the word actively here, because UPSC can say that Jogesh Chandra Chatterjee and Barindra Kumar Ghosh were not actively part of it, right? So that's why UPSC introduced the word actively here. And also in this question, which of the following has shrunk immensely or dried up? Why did UPSC introduce the word immensely or dried up here? Because UPSC can't say that not even 0.1% or even 1 centimeter of Black Sea and Lake Baikal have not been dried up. They might have at least dried up by 1 to 2 centimeter, right? That's for sure. But then UPSC can say that they have not immensely dried up. Now that is why UPSC introduced here. Now, so the first and foremost thing that you need to look into is not the statements, but then you need to look into the question. Does the question have any extreme words given in the question? If there are any extreme words, UPSC might be using that extreme word in order to eliminate one of the options here. Okay? Now here in 2025 as well, you can see in the context of electric vehicle batteries, consider the following elements: cobalt, graphite, lithium, nickel. Now here UPSC have introduced how many of the above usually make up the battery cathode. Now why did UPSC introduce the word usually here? It might be to eliminate one of the options, right? If the word usually was not there, maybe in future, all of it can be used as a battery cathode, right? Maybe possible, maybe a future technology comes, but then since the word usually is given there, you know that, okay, fine, all of the above is not the answer because UPSC have introduced the word usually here. Now, if such a word is asked in any of the question, you must understand that if you know the factual answer, just go for all the above. But then if you're not sure about the same, what do you need to do? You need to understand that UPSC introduces certain options in order to eliminate one of the answer, eliminate one of the options. Now, the first and the foremost thing that you need to look to is to look for Look out for words and understand why UPSC introduced such words. Mostly the extreme words are introduced to eliminate our one-person logic. Okay, so when UPSC introduces extreme words in the heading such as lethally, significantly, mainly, effectively, usually, keep in mind that maybe all the above might be the answer here, and UPSC introduces these words in order to eliminate at least one of the option. Okay, now we'll first actually move into how to solve the multiple statement questions, because in the pre-webinar video I have already discussed about how to solving the single statement videos. I hope all of you are clear regarding the same. Now what are multiple statement questions? These are basically questions wherein two statements are given. It might be two statements, three statements, four statements, five statements, and even UPSC have asked 7 statements in a satellite based question. So there is a pattern on how you need to go through. Okay, firstly you need to understand what are the general and specific statements regarding the same. You need to understand what are the general words or what are the extreme words. You need to understand using the complementary and the contradictory statements. You need to understand what to do when a single fact is given or a multiple fact is given. You need to understand all the elimination techniques and all the other patterns. Now let me tell you, in this session, I'm not going to be detailedly explaining all the elimination techniques because it will take us around 4 to 5 hours. But then mostly I'll be focusing on the patterns. Okay. So here, I'll give you 10 seconds. Firstly, you need to identify what are the general and the extreme statements here. So here, in this question, monocyte is a source of rare earths. Is it a general statement or is it an extreme statement? Monocyte is a source of rare earths. Now, this is a very general statement, right? This is a very general statement. It might, UPSC cannot say that not even 0.01% rare earth is not there in monocyte. So it's obviously is correct. What about second one? Monocyte contains thorium. Now, if UPSC wanted to make it incorrect, UPSC would use the word monocyte contains significant amount of thorium, or monocyte contains large quantities of thorium. UPSC did not introduce any such word here. So therefore, monocyte can contain, right? UPSC can never say that monocyte doesn't contain even 0.001 gram of thorium. So both of these are correct. Now, but then what about the third statement? Monocyte occurs naturally in the entire Indian coastal sands in India. Now, how do you treat it? Is monocyte available in Kerala, in different beaches of Kerala, in the beaches of Tamil Nadu, in all the beaches of Karnataka, Maharashtra, Gujarat, all the other places? It's definitely impossible, right? So therefore, this is incorrect. Now here, this is an extreme statement because the word entire is given here. But then, since no extreme words are given here, these are basically the general statements. Okay? So what are general statements basically? General statements are basically those statements wherein no facts, no data, and no examples are basically given. And what are extreme words? You have a lot of extreme words like you significantly, lethally, mainly, only, no, entirely. All of these are basically the extreme words. I'm not going very deep into it because these are very general. All of you know about it. We are not going to identify. Now, the second thing that you need to do while solving a multiple, 2 statement or even 3 statement questions is to go for grouping. Now, how do you group it? Which of the following, let's take this question. Which of the following activities constitute real sector in the economy? So here are 4 options, right? Now what do you think constitutes the real sector? In this one, farmers harvesting their crops. Okay, some kind of production is happening, right? Some kind of production is happening here. Textiles mills converting their raw cotton into fabrics. Here also, some kind of production is happening. But then what about third and fourth option? A commercial bank lending money to a trading company. Is there some kind of production happening? No, there is no kind of production happening, right? So this might be into service sector or something, or maybe a financial sector. A corporate body issuing rupee denominated bonds. There also no production is happening, mostly related to service sector. So here, how do you group this one? Statement 3 and 4 would be one group, and statement 1 and 2 would be another group, right? So here, if you look at the answer, 1 and 2 is given separately and 1, 2, 3, 4 is given. Do you think that option B and C would be the answer here? What do you think of option C and B? 1 and 2 is one group, 3 and 4 is another group, but then in case of option B, 2, 3, 4 is given. Now here some kind of production is taking place, but then 3 and 4 is related to some kind of services, and in case of C, 1 is given along with 3 and 4. It doesn't have any relation, right? So therefore, either A or D is the answer, but then option C and 4 is related to services, so we can directly go for A. Now this is called grouping, okay? You basically group all the similar options into one and you separate it from the non-similar ones. Now even in case of this question, consider the following statements. DNA barcoding can be a tool too. Now identify the different groups here. What do you think? What are the two different groups here? Here, the first statement says, assess the age of a plant. So here, we are assessing something, right? We are basically assessing something. But then in case of option 2 and 3, here distinguishing among species. So here we are identifying something or distinguishing something. Here also identify undesirable plants or animals. Here also we are identifying the same, right? So what do you think are the two groups? Option A is a different group and 2 and 3 is another group. Would 1 and 2 come together? No. Would C come along? No. And barcoding, usually what we do with barcoding? You scan the QR code, you scan the barcode, right? So when you go to the shop, they actually scan the barcode. So it's basically to identify the product, right? So therefore, you can go with 2 and 3. Now this is another method that you do. So firstly, what do? You go for the general and specific statements or the general and the extreme words. Secondly, you try to group when multiple statements is given. And also the next thing, you try to understand whether statements are contradictory or complementary. Now, when statements are actually contradictory, would two statements come together in a single answer? Let's say for example, in case of 2025 question, the 40th question. With reference to planet Earth, consider the following statements. Rainforest produces more oxygen than produced by oceans. So here the first statement basically says, rainforest produces more oxygen than the oceans, right? But what about the second one? Marine phytoplankton and photosynthetic bacteria produce about 50% of the world oxygen. Now, would these statements actually go together? First statement is saying that rainforests produce more, but then the second statement is saying basically it's the marine phytoplankton which produces more. So does it go together? No. So therefore, 1 and 2 wouldn't go together. So therefore, we can directly eliminate option A, right? Now D would definitely not be the answer. Now here second statement is correct because basically marine phytoplankton and photosynthetic bacteria are the ones that produce 50% of the world oxygen. Now what about this statement? The second option here. What do you think are the contradictory and the complementary statements here? Now, what option 4 and 2 go together? Let's say T-board. Okay, T-board has offices in Dubai and Moscow. So if the T-board has offices in Dubai and Moscow, it's more related to export. It's more related to trade than production, right? But then the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare is basically related to the production. They are not basically related to the export of goods and commodities. But then which organization or which ministry is actually related to the exports? We have APDA, Agriculture Export Promotion Development Authority, and also we have Ministry of Commerce and Industry, right? So here 2 and 4 are basically contradictory, therefore it doesn't come together. Try to find out this one, the 98th question. It's all UPSC PYQs, you must have done the same, but still, what do you think are the contradictory statements here? Now here, statement 2 says, the award, the Laurus World Sports Awards, talking about the Laurus World Awards, the award was received mostly by Formula 1 players so far. Okay, so the second statement is basically saying The award was mostly received by Formula One players. And the third statement basically says Roger Federer, who is a tennis player, received this award maximum number of times as compared to others. Now, is it contradictory or complementary? If Roger Federer has won the maximum number of lower sports awards, would Formula One as a sport receive the maximum number of lower sports awards, or would it be tennis? Now here also both statements are contradicting, right? So in reality, tennis has received the most number of lower sports awards. It's because basically Roger Federer has received the most number of awards. So here also 2 and 3 is not complementary, it's basically contradictory, therefore only one of them would be the answer. So the answer is basically 1 and 3. Now in case of this question as well, the Home Guards are raised under the Home Guards Act and rules of the central government. Now the second statement basically says the role of the Home Guards is to serve as an auxiliary force in the police in the maintenance of internal security. Now police basically comes under the duty or under the state government, right? The police basically comes under the state government. So what do you think? If the Home Guards basically comes under the police, okay, Home Guards basically comes under the police, so therefore would the Home Guards be under the central government or the state government? Or who frames actually the rules for it? Would it be the central government or the state government? It's definitely going to be the state government, right? So therefore in this question as well, 1 and 2 is basically contradictory, therefore only one of them would be the answer. So now this is one of the technique that you use, okay? So we have gone through grouping, now we have also gone through contradicting statements as well. Now this is something that all of you know, I'm not going to be explaining very deeply. So here in the 2025 question paper, 67 question, the question was regarding the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Now here it says, the International Bank for Redevelopment, it works single-handedly to help developing countries to reduce their poverty. Now single-handedly is a very extreme word here, right? Because you know that World Bank is a group of different banks, right? You have the IRBD, you have I actually forgot about it. You have IDA, you have different banks in case of World Bank, right? So does the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development works single-handedly to help reducing poverty in the country? You know, IMF also provides, you have multilateral banks such as ADB, AIBB, and all the other different banks which actually provides funds to developing countries. So single-handedly is an extreme word here. You can eliminate that and you will get to the answer 1 and 3. Now what about here? All is there, all is there, all is there. Therefore, all of them is basically incorrect if you actually go dive into it. And also in 2025, there was a question regarding no viruses are there in oceans, no viruses are there in this, no viruses are there in that. That was also incorrect. So another one, when it comes to extreme words, you can eliminate them and get to the answer. Now we have not got to the pattern. Now what if multiple facts are given? You know, multiple facts basically refers to 2 facts given in a question. Okay, so here you can see that it is an initiative of UNEP and UNESCO, right? So what are the 2 facts here? First fact is UNEP and the second fact here is UNESCO. Now what do you do when multiple facts are given? Let's say in a question, only single fact is given. It is an initiative of UNEP. Now, for the answer to get correct, there is a 50% chance, right? It can be UNEP or it may not be UNEP. Okay, there's a 50% chance. It can be UNEP or it may not be UNEP. What if a second option is there? Now, it needs to be UNEP as well as it needs to be UNESCO. So therefore, does the chance increase of being correct or does the chance decrease of being correct? Definitely it will decrease, right? Because one option was there, 50% was the chance, but then if 2 options are there, therefore the chances get reduced. Therefore, what do you do when you don't have any information regarding the same? Do you take it positively or do you take it negatively? You must take it negatively, okay? Because since multiple facts are given, the probability of that statement being incorrect actually increases because 2 statements have to be correct here or 2 facts have to be correct here. Therefore, the probability of that statement being incorrect is actually very high. So even in this question as well, you can see here, the question is regarding the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. It is an organization of European Union in working relation with NATO and WHO. Here also you have two facts here. The one is NATO and the second one is basically WHO. So two facts have to be correct. If you don't have any knowledge regarding the same, you need to take it incorrect because two facts has to be correct and the chances of two facts being correct is actually very less. Even here, the GM mustard has been developed jointly by Indian Agriculture Research Institute and also Punjab Agriculture University. So here, Indian Agriculture Research Institute should also be there and Punjab Agriculture University should also be there. If you don't know anything, the chances of this statement being correct is very high. But then since most two facts have to be correct, the chances are pretty less to be correct. Therefore, you can take it as negative if you don't know about the same. Now, you can have endless questions regarding the same, okay? I'm not going to go through. Here you have EPIC, ASEAN, ADB and all this given. Here you have Indian World Resource Institute, World Business Development Council and all these things. Now, the real question actually comes here. Now, I have gone through multiple logical elimination techniques, right? Now, there are endless elimination techniques out there, but I have gone through at least 6 to 7 of them. What do you think you should do when only one fact is given and you don't have any logical and elimination techniques to counter the statement or even make it correct? This is where the pattern comes into play. Okay, after you have exhausted all the elimination techniques which I have shown you or any other techniques which you know, then what do? You leave it for the pattern. And what does the pattern say when only a single fact is given? Okay, I have compiled all the single fact questions from 2022 to 2015, last 8 years single pattern questions, and this is what the results are. Okay. So in 2022, a total number of 122 single statement fact questions were there. Out of that, 76 was correct, 47 was incorrect. 2022, 104 statements were there, 70 were correct, 34 were incorrect. 2020, 115 statements were there, 67 was correct, 48 was incorrect. 2019, 113 statements were there, 39 was correct, 54 was incorrect. So when you go into all these statements, you understand that in the last 8 years from 2022 to 2015, more than 979 statements were there. And out of that, 587 statements were correct and 392 statements were incorrect. So that is actually the percentage of being a statement correct. If it has a single fact is that almost 60% of the probability is there for the statement being correct. So what should you do? Should you leave the question? Should you mark it positively? Or should you mark it negative? Let me tell you, if you don't know the statement, okay, you should never mark it as incorrect. Either you leave that statement or you leave the question or you mark it correct. Okay, because the probability or the pattern actually says that there is actually 60% chance for that statement being correct. So you should never mark the statement incorrect. If you don't know something, either you can mark it correct or you can leave it. Everyone clear? Any doubts? Okay, but then let me tell you, this is not in the case of all the questions, okay? Let's say if any ministry is asked. Now usually UPSC have this habit of giving all the ministries departments as incorrect, right? But in 2025, UPSC have that changed the pattern and made the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy as correct. So in case of ministries, in case of specific data, in case of places, in case of locations, in case of any international organizations is given, UPSC usually have this tendency to make it incorrect. Apart from these organizations, ministries, departments, the rest of the statements, you can make it correct, okay? Even if you don't know the statement, you can make it correct or you can leave the statement. Now, this is where the pattern comes into play, okay? The pattern will help you make the decision in case when you are in a confusion. Let me show you some more examples regarding the same. Now, we'll go to 5 or more statements. Okay, statements which have either 5 or 6 or maybe 7 statements. Now, what do you do when you are in a confusion? Or how do you identify the question? Identify the answer. First, you basically identify the correct and incorrect statements. then you identify the general and specific statements, and then you go for the elimination techniques, and then you go for the pattern. So we are not going to identify the correct and incorrect statements. This is something that all of you know. Basically, you go for all the general statements, you make it correct, and all those statements which actually have facts, you either know it or you make it incorrect. Okay, we can group it somehow. So in the benzene question, you can see here, automobile exhaust, tobacco smoke, wood burning, these are basically smoke, right? These are basically air. So this is one group, and using varnished wooden furniture, using products made of fluoroethylene is some another group. So when you group it, 1, 2, 3 comes one group, and 4 and 5 comes another group. So here, either you can go with option A, 1, 2, 3, or you can go with option D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here the answer was basically 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now what about this question? Which of the following activities are Indian remote sensing satellites used? Now here, assessing the crop productivity, locating groundwater resources, mineral exploration are basically done by low Earth satellites, right? Or basically the satellites which are there in the low Earth. So 1, 2, 3 can be one group, whereas traffic studies and telecommunication are basically done by satellites which are there in geostationary or geosynchronous orbits. So 1, 2, 3 can be one group, 4 and 5 can be another group. So here the answer would either be 1, 2, 3 or the answer would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now IRS is basically a remote sensing satellite, right? So this is mostly focused on minerals. So therefore here also the answer was 1, 2, 3. So this is the way you should do it, okay? You go for grouping, you identify the correct statements or the incorrect statements, and after that, let me tell you, if you get into a confusion, now what do? You don't know whether here option A or B is the answer, or let's say option A or C is the answer. Let's say you have a confusion regarding the C. You don't know whether option A, which is 1, 2, 3 is the answer, or option C, 1 and 2 is the answer. Now what do? This is where the pattern comes into play. Okay, now what do? You have to go with the pattern. Now what does the pattern basically tell you? You have a lot of 5 statement questions, 7 statement questions which was asked in the last 10 years, even the 6 statement questions. Now basically the pattern basically says that in the last 10 years, okay, in the last 10 years, there was 37 5 or more statement questions. Now out of that, 29 questions, okay, out of that, 29 questions went with this pattern here. So when, as I shown you 2 questions, right, in both these questions, 5 statements were asked and 3 of them was correct. In the benzene population, 1, 2, 3 was correct. Also in the IRS question as well, among the 5 options, 3 was correct. So mostly when 5 statements are asked, 3 would be correct. When 6 statements are asked, 4 would be correct. And even when 7 statements are basically asked, 5 of them tend to be correct. Okay. Now, if you're in a confusion between, let's say it's a 5 statement question, and if you're a confusion between only 2 and only 3, what should you go through? You should be going with only 3, okay? Let's see how it worked in 2025 or even 2023 as well. Here, it did not work. This was a 6 statement question and the answer was only 3 here. Here, 2023, here, 5 statements were there. Only 3 was the answer here. 2024, parasitoid species are found in how many of the above organisms? 5 statements were there. Only 3 was the answer. Here, which of the above countries are frequently mentioned in media for their low birth rates? Now, which are the countries? You have Italy, you have Japan, and you have South Korea, right? So 5, among that, A, 1 to 4 was the answer. Again, went with the pattern. What about 2025? This is something that will surprise you, okay? In almost all the questions, in one question, we doesn't know what the answer key is basically is, but then with regard to all the questions, UPSC went with the same pattern. Now here, 6 statements were there, only 4 was the answer here. Here, 6 questions were there, 6 statements were there, only 4 was the answer. 5 statements were there, only 3 was the answer. Here, how many of the above countries have India wherein UPI is used? Which are the countries? You have UAE, you have France, and you have Singapore. So basically, only 3 was the answer here. Here there's a confusion whether it's only 3 or is it only 4. We are hoping the answer is only 3. In this question as well, 1 1, 2 and 5 was the answer when with a pattern. So what do you do when you are confused? In case of 5 statements, go with 3. 6 statements, go with 4. 7 statements, go with 5. And do it when you're confused, okay? Don't just directly go, let's say Srijay sir told me to do this. You don't do that. Only when you're in a state of confusion and you don't know what to choose between, let's say, only 2 or only 3. In case of 5 statement questions, go with only 3. Now what about 4 statement questions? 4 statement questions can be divided into 2 types, okay? One which related to the sentences question, wherein you can see a lot of big sentences, and the second one you can see symbol words here: Vamsadhara, Indravati, Pranhita and Penna. And I'm not going to be talking about symbol words here, okay? I'm not going to be talking about this one here. I'll only be talking about the sentences here. Now, when you look into the sentences question, which was asked by UPSC in the last 10 years, this is a sentences question. Now, you try to do this one. I'll give you 10 seconds or I'll give you 15 seconds. Other than poaching, what are the possible reasons for the decline in the population of Ganges River? What are the possible reasons for the decline of the population of Gangetic River dolphin here? What do you think is the answer here? You can comment in the comment section. Mansi is saying C, Sri is saying C, Samsung C, Dell C. Okay, everyone is saying C. Okay, fine, good. So I guess all of you know the pattern. So here the answer was C, because increase in the population of crocodiles doesn't happen, right? Because if all these factors, construction of dams, getting trapped in fishing nets, use of synthetic fertilizers, if it affects the population of Gangetic River dolphins, it also affects the population of crocodiles, right? So therefore here the answer was 134. But then some of you might have the confusion that it might be option D, right? Some of you at least, maybe even one of you might have the confusion, right? Now in this question is where the pattern comes in. Now what does the pattern basically say? When UPSC in the last 10 years have asked about 4 statement questions, in none of the questions have all the 4 been correct. And I'm not talking about some mushrooms are herbivorous, some snakes are herbivores. No, that they are not big statement questions. I'm not talking about the simple statement questions, okay? I'm talking about the big paragraph model statements, which I have shown you here. In all these statements, in the last 10 years, none of the questions had all 4 as the answer. And I'll show you some more examples regarding the same. Even in this question, you might have a confusion between C and D here. Now, if you have a confusion, what do? You go with C, because all 4 would never be correct. I'm saying would never be. If you know it factually that it is correct, you can go for it in 2026, but then be very careful when you do that, okay? Because UPSC basically increases the number of statements to make at least one of them incorrect. Or else UPSC could just give 3 statements and make it 3 incorrect, 3 correct, right? Why does UPSC increase the number of statements? It's basically to make some of them incorrect. Never have been all the 4 correct. Even in 2025 as well, some of the students have given all the 4 here, but then I actually know when I saw the question that all of them would never be the correct and at least one of them would be incorrect. So here only 3 was the answer here. Now let me tell you, there are no significant patterns to 3 pair only questions as we have discussed the 5 statement questions or for the 4 statement questions. But then according to the trends, according to the pattern, only 2 and none has been the answer most number of times. Okay, so you can't just directly go with only 2 or none, but then I'm telling you that has been the pattern in case of most of the questions. But then how do you do the questions? So here, let's say in case of this pulses question, okay, there are a lot of chance of UPSC interchanging the same. Let's say this can, if this is the answer to this, then nebula won't be the answer. Right. So you have to always check whether UPSC is crisscrossing the options. But then if UPSC was crisscrossing most number of times, then the answer should have been only 1. Right. But then that's not the case in case of UPSC. If you look into the patterns, a total of 12 questions have been asked in 2023, 24 and 2025. In 4 cases, only 2 has been the answer. So UPSC has not been crisscrossing in most number of times. And for 5 times, option none has been the answer. Okay. So the probability of only 1 being coming and the only 3 being coming are very less. Now I am not saying this is a significant pattern, but then you could just, if you have a doubt between the same, you can go with none or even only 2. Now what about only 4 pair only questions? Now here you have a significant pattern here. I'll tell you. So these are some of the questions which UPSC have introduced since 2023. So you have Devi Chandraguptam, Hamira Mahakavya, Milinda Panha, you have Asmaga, Kamboja, Avandi, Kaushala. And what do you think has come more times? Is it only 1, only 2, only 3, or only 4? What do you think? What do you think has been the answer most number of times? Only 2. Pratibha is saying only 2. Good. Only 2 has been the answer most number of times. Okay. So these are some of the questions. So a total of 8 questions were there. Out of that, only 1 became the answer once. But then in 6 cases, okay, and 6 cases is significant because among 8 questions, out of it 6 questions, only 2 was the answer here. Okay, so only 3 was never the answer. And in 2025, only 4 was one of the answer to one of the questions. So if you have a doubt in case of a 4 statement questions or a 4 pair only questions, what do? In case you have a doubt between only 3 or only 2 or only 1, it's better to actually go with only 2 in case of a 4 pair question. Okay, so these were the 2025 questions. In the Asmaga question or even the Mahajanpada question, only 2 was the answer here. Asmaga and Avandi Kaushala was the answer. But then in this question, which UPSC actually tricked us all 4 was the answer. Okay, I mean no one could have, I don't think anyone would have made it correct. Okay, maybe if you would have just given randomly, you would have got it correct. But then I don't know why UPSC actually asked this question. Okay. Now what about row-based questions? You have different types of questions asked in UPSC from 2023 onwards. So in terms of 3 row-based questions, you don't have much questions to even make it a pattern. That's the issue here. So 2 questions were asked in case of 3 row questions. Out of that, only 1 was correct once and only 2 was correct in another question. In case of 4 types, we can say we might have a pattern here. Out of the 3 total questions which came, only 1 was the answer in one of the question and 2 was the answer in 2 of the questions. So let me say that in case when 4 questions come, be it in pair or be it in rows, only 2 has more probability of being correct. Okay. So if you're confused between only 2 or only 3, it's better to always go for only 2. Even in 2024 as well, you had, even 2025, okay, I didn't show the questions. Now, what about statement and assertion? Statement and assertion questions doesn't have any pattern. But then I'll tell you a significant observation that I have made in case of statement and assertion questions. So what do you do in case of statement and assertion questions? First, you read the statements independently and you assess or you analyze the factual element of the same. So you read both the statements independently and you analyze whether A is correct and B is correct. And then what do you go? If both A and B is correct, you add the word because they. Okay, let's say you read statement A and then you add the word because they, and then you read the second statement. Okay, that is how you understand whether B is the correct explanation for statement A. Clear, everyone? First you directly read both the statements independently. If either one of them is correct, you actually got the answer if it's C or D. If both the statements are correct, you add the word because they. You read basically statement 1 and you add the word because, and then you read statement 2. So here, these are where the statement C or D is the answer, because definitely one of them is incorrect. In this question, uranium enriched to at least 60%. Now 60% is not required to produce electricity, right? And in case of 60%, you can make nuclear weapons. Now nuclear weapons not 60%, we need at least 80%, but uranium at least 5 to 10%, we can make electricity. So therefore here, statement 2 is incorrect. Now in case of here as well, marsupials can thrive only in montane grasslands with no predators. This is impossible, right? Because kangaroos does not thrive in montane grasslands. Kangaroos basically thrive in grasslands. They are not high such as the montane grasslands. They are basically temperate grasslands in Australia. So montane grasslands and with no predators, will such an ecosystem is ever there with no predators? Koala bears are basically marsupials. Koala bears are basically eaten or killed by almost all the animals there. So here, either one of them would be incorrect. You actually directly go with option C or D. Or what do? In case both the statement would be correct, and you add the word because here. So in this first question, in India, prisons are managed by state governments with their own rules and regulations for the day-to-day administration of the prisons, because in India, prisons are governed by Prisons Act, which explicitly kept the subject of prisons in the control of provincial governments. Now you can find a reason here, right? So why in case of prisons they are with state governments right now? It's because the Prisons Act of 1984 kept them under the list of provincial governments. So when you add the word because, you actually find a reason between the same, or find an explanation for statement B for statement A. Now even in this question, 7th August is declared as National Land Home Day because it was in 1905 that the Swadeshi movement was launched on the same day. So it has a relation when you add the word because, right? So this is how you identify the same, whether it's option A or if it's option B. Now, when do you go for option B? Now here you can see India's public sector health system largely focuses on curative care, including prevention, promotive and rehabilitative care, right? So here the word largely is written. I'll tell you the reason why. Under India's decentralized approach to healthcare, states are primarily responsible for organizing health sector. Okay, both the statements are correct here. But then, does statement B have any relation to statement A? Is it for the reason that state government is looking after health, India is largely focusing on curative care rather than preventive, promotion and rehabilitative care? You add the word because here. So India's public sector care largely focus on curative care, limited and promotive rehabilitative care, because under India's centralized approach to healthcare delivery, states are primarily responsible for organizing healthcare. Does it have any relation? It doesn't have any relation, right? So therefore you can go with the option B here. Even in this question, carbon markets are likely to be one of the most widespread tools in the fight against climate change. It's because carbon markets transfer resources from the private sector to the state. Now, does the carbon market transfer significant resources for it being the most widespread tool? Is it the reason that carbon markets are likely to be the most widespread tool? Maybe carbon markets actually transfer resources from private sector to state. There can be, a very small amount actually is transferred to the state government. But then, is it the correct explanation for it being the most widespread tool in the fight against climate change? Maybe they transfer 10 crores, maybe they transfer 5 crores to the state government, to the India as a state. But then because it transfers resources from private sector to the state, is it the reason for it being the most widespread tool? No. So what do you understand here? When UPSC actually makes option B as the answer, UPSC have this tendency of providing extreme words. Right. I'll show you one more example regarding the same. So be it in 2025 as well, you don't have much pattern in case of statement assertion questions, okay? B has been the answer only 2 times, be it in 2023 and 2024, but in case of A, C and D, we can't say. We need to know the facts regarding the same. But between A and B, let me tell you, when UPSC gives B as the answer, UPSC have this habit of providing some extreme words. Okay, because UPSC wants to make it exactly the reason for the same. So here, why did UPSC provide the most widespread tool? Because maybe carbon markets transfer some resources to the state. But then, is it the main reason that it becomes the most widespread tool? No. Now, in case of 2025 as well, you can see here, studies indicate that carbon dioxide emissions from cement industry account for more than 5% of the global carbon emission. Now, this is a significant amount, right? You must be thinking why Modi ji is there. Okay. What was I saying? Okay. So here, studies indicate that carbon dioxide emissions from cement industry account for more than 5% of the global carbon emissions. Now, this is a significant quantity, right? So, for it being around 5% of the global carbon emission, is it because silicon bearing clay is mixed with limestone while manufacturing cement? Now, is it the reason for cement industry accounting more than 5% of the global carbon emission? Does silica bearing clay, when mixed with limestone, creates that amount of carbon dioxide? If UPSC wanted to make it option A, okay, if UPSC wanted this to be the correct, UPSC could have just added studies indicate that carbon dioxide emissions from cement industry accounts for global carbon emissions, or cement industry actually accounts for release of global carbon emissions or something like that. Why did UPSC give the word more than 5% here? Because the options here should be the reason for it to actually release 5%. Now, the silica bearing clay when mixed with limestone creates actually this significant amount of carbon dioxide to make it around 5% of the global carbon emissions? No. Now, that is why we at Civilsdaily has given the answer key as B. And we have received significant backlash regarding the same. But then I believe that when the answer key comes of UPSC provides us at 2026, this would be the answer. Because here an extreme word is here. Therefore, one of the answer might not be the correct explanation for the C. So what do you do? In case of statement assertion questions, A has more probability than B, but then look for extreme words in statement A, okay? If statement 1 has any kind of extreme words, then A might not be the answer. UPSC must have added the extreme word there in order to either eliminate one of the options. Okay, you can go for option B rather than A at that time. So also let me tell you that UPSC have this habit of asking the pattern based questions. Now you can see here 4 statements were there and 3 of them was the answer. 4 pair only questions were there, only 2 was the answer. And also in case of these 6 statements, only 4 has been the answer here. Now this has not been in 3, limited to 3 questions, but then UPSC, if you actually go through the last 10 years of questions, you can see n number of questions have been repeated in this way. Now why do UPSC ask these questions? It's actually UPSC in itself is actually reaffirming that there are some patterns regarding the same, right? Now if that was not the case, UPSC shouldn't have provided questions in this manner, right? So UPSC in itself is reaffirming that there are some kind of patterns regarding the same. Now what do you need to do? In case you have a doubt regarding certain questions, if you have having a confusion regarding B or C or even A or D, what do? You have exhausted all your elimination techniques. Now what is the final thing that you have? You go for the pattern, okay? Now what is the pattern here? In case when 5 statements come, you go with 3. In case when 6 statements come, you go with 4. In case of 7, you go with 5. In case of 4 statement questions, you actually go with, you should not be going with all the above. In case of 4 pair only questions, you can go with only 2. In case of statement and assertion questions, what do? What do? You can go with A, C and D, but then let's say if you're going with D, make sure that UPSC have given some kind of extreme word in statement 1. If UPSC has introduced an extreme word in statement 1, then you can go with only B. Now that's not all of the cases. UPSC is really unpredictable, so UPSC might go against the pattern, but then still, if UPSC have introduced some kind of extreme words in the statement 1, you just be very careful regarding the same. Now, I'm not going to be talking with the single statement questions because these has already been said in the pre-webinar video. If I am to explain this, the video is going to be very lengthy, so I'll just skip all these things. This is because we have already done all these in the pre-webinar video, okay? You can watch the pre-webinar video if you have a doubt regarding how to do the single statement questions. So we have extreme words, you have identification of correct and incorrect statements, you have the identification of extreme words, you have similar statements, you have term statements such as we have the aerial metagenomics, orbital bombardment system, you have the similar statements such as Lisa Pathfinder, Evolved Elisa, Jean Baptiste Tavernier, Jane D. Tavernier. You have repetition of words. Now why does UPSC provide it? It's because UPSC want you to confuse a correct answer with an incorrect answer, right? Now that's the reason why UPSC is providing similar statements or similar worded questions. So you have all these questions. You have all the specific logic and all. Now that you have seen all the patterns behind the UPSC PYQ questions, the next logical question is, how do you use these insights gained from this session to make it more fruitful and actually get you into the mains 2026? Now, how do you use it? Now, this is where exactly the relevance of Dominate Prelims comes into point in this multiverse of madness, right? Now, I usually call UPSC as a multi-wordness package because we have this endless academies out there who actually provides you the prelims test series without focusing on the PYQs, without having any knowledge regarding the micro themes, without having significant knowledge regarding the elimination techniques, be it the patterns and all this. They just provide you random factual questions which doesn't train you for the 2026 prelims which is coming next year. But this is where we have changed the scenario regarding prelims. We are going to be focusing on the micro themes. We are going to be applying all the elimination techniques as I have shown you here in our test series, and also we'll be following almost all the patterns that we have discussed the same. Now, if I actually show you our test series here, the Dominate test series, this is going to be official launch of Dominate test series as well. So our first test will happen on July 19th. As you can see here, we'll be doing around 5,000 questions. We'll be solving around 10 years of, you'll be having access to around 10 years of PYQ live discussions, which is going to be taken by me, and you will understand how UPSC have used these patterns, how UPSC have been applying all these elimination techniques in its past 10-year questions. You will have access to around 100 hours of lecture, wherein we will have specific classes regarding the micro themes. Also, you will have access to the Samachar Manthan, wherein you will have a weekly revision class regarding the current affairs of 1 week. Also, you will be having a 25 question test regarding the same. So as you can see here, we are going to be starting on July 19th. So if you want to clear prelims 2026, so do join the program. It's a year-long program. I will show you the schedule as well. Now, this is a timetable for the Dominate Prelims, but then these are not the main pillars on why you should join the Dominate Prelims program. Now, what are the main pillars? First of all, is the one-to-one mentorship that you will have. And for the Dominate Prelims, I'll be your mentor. As most of you know, my name is Srijay. I have consequently cleared 4 prelims in a row, and I have been a mentor to a lot of toppers out there, be it Benjo, who has secured all India rank of 59, be it Nevin, who actually secured IPS in his first attempt, be it Nasrim P. Fasim, and many others. So I'll be your mentor for the Dominate Prelims program, and we will have one-on-one sessions on a weekly basis. We are going to sit together and analyze where you're going wrong, what do you need to improve. We are going to be focusing on your time management, the way you attempt the questions, be it any way, be it anything on short that you're making mistakes in case of your prelims. The next more component, you will have access to the Samachar Manthan classes. This is a weekly revision session wherein you will have a 1 weekly class, and also you will have a test regarding the same. You will have access to the flash notes. Now these flash notes are the most comprehensive notes that I have ever seen. Okay, I'm also working behind it. So you'll have access to the flash notes which contains the information regarding all the micro themes out there, such as species, pollution, national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, tiger reserves, rivers. You'll have access to more than 170 micro themes. So we are preparing a comprehensive list of around 170 PDF. Now this is going to be a 1-page note for all your micro themes related preparation. We have the most intelligent AI-made test analytics dashboard, which is going to be comprehensively review your answer, where you're going wrong, which are your weakening areas, which are your strength portions, everything. Also, now UPSC is a list of 100 questions, right? Out of that, 40 static questions are there, then the rest 60 are mostly logical questions. To prepare you on the 60 logical questions, we will have around close to 20 hours of logical discussion classes. Also, the most innovative component that we are introducing this year is a roundtable discussions. Now, what are the roundtable discussions? Now, roundtable discussions are basically a 15 questions. I'll give you a set of 15 questions wherein you have to answer all these questions in the next 15 minutes. And after that, we are going to be having a Zoom session regarding the same. In this Zoom session, I'm going to be taking each and every question and asking you how you did this answer. Let's say one aspirant might have used a different logic to get to the answer. Another aspirant might have used any other different logic. So in this way, you will get to know how these different aspirants have thought and how they came to the answer. Now this is going to be significantly improving you on how others think. Thereby, you can also change your method of thinking and get clarity in thought. Now this is going to be a game changer in the Delhi civil service industry, because none of the institutes have such an initiative regarding the same. Now also, we'll be focusing on our micro themes. As you know, in case of polity, we'll be having classes regarding judiciary, political theory, fundamental rights. Now on the basis of micro themes, you will be having revision classes regarding the same. So what I'm saying is, in case of factual knowledge, you will have the test series, you will have the classes, you will have Samachar Manthan, and to improve your logic to tackle the 60 questions that I have discussed earlier, you will be having 20 hours of logical elimination techniques, around 12 years of PYQ discussions, and also we'll be having the roundtable questions to get you the logical elimination techniques is done, your static portions are done, and your current affairs portions are also done. So this is a complete list of package which will ensure you that you get your name into the mains 2026. Also, due to my mentorship we will analyze where you're going wrong, what you're doing wrong, and we'll make sure that all the mistakes that you're doing, be it time management, be it the way of thinking, is written off, and I will make sure that you give your best attempt for the prelims 2026. So that's it. So the Dominate Prelims is live. Do join. To give, make sure that you leave no stone unturned. Okay, you might have given your 2025, you must have given your 2024. If you're feeling that there is some portions that I need to improve, or if you don't feel that, okay, last time I did 8 hours, this time I'm going to be in 12 hours. No, it doesn't work like that. As I said in the beginning of the session, you need to have a radical shift in your approach, and the Dominate Prelims is going to be a radical shift on the way you think, write, and actually face the examination. Also, one more thing I want to say is that you can scan this QR code for getting around 30% off on our Dominate Prelims program. So do go for it, and I wish you all the best. Scan the program, scan the QR code, be part of the program, and I'll be mentoring you. You'll get access to all the things which I have said right now. And see you all as part of the mentorship program, and I hope you enjoy the session. Thank you. Also, you have the link in the description below. If you have any queries, do click the link, do write to us, or if you want to visit us for one-on-one mentorship, we have the Delhi campus in Karol Bagh. Do visit us, come to us. We can sit on a one-on-one session and actually find out where you're going wrong. So thank you everyone. Thank you once again for joining. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you.